change. We are ready to come together. And in this election, we are ready to believe again.
We never hide from history. We make history. Now let's go win this election.
After months of campaigning, countless speeches, and nonstop rallies, tomorrow one of these men will be elected the next president of the United States. And tomorrow, Americans will make history and put our voting system to the test in an election that is inspiring more people than ever to vote.
From CBS 5 Eyewitness News, this is a Campaign 2008 election special. Countdown to the vote.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Hank Plant. Tonight we count down to the vote with an in-depth look at the last hours of what really has been the longest and most expensive presidential campaign. With one day to go, what can be done in this final push and what's at stake for California? First of all, the latest CBS News poll finds 51% of likely voters support Barack Obama, 42% support John McCain, 5% are undecided. And you know, just about every national poll since October has Obama leading, though sometimes that lead is within the margin of error. Here is how the electoral map and the math are shaping up. According to CBS News, these 9 states are considered too close to call. And if you look at states that are solidly behind Barack Obama or leaning heavily in his favor, he can count on 259 electoral votes. McCain can count on 163. 116 electoral votes are up for grabs. The number needed to win, 270. So how are the candidates spending these last few hours? Manuel Gallegos is in Phoenix for the McCain campaign, and we start in Chicago with Drew Levinson. Drew?
Well, good evening to you, Hank. We are here at Grant Park, where tomorrow night hundreds of thousands of people are expected to be at a Barack Obama, what he hopes to be, a victory party. Earlier today, Obama was in 3 battleground states. He started out in Florida, then went on to North Carolina, and in just a few minutes, he will be speaking in Virginia. In Charlotte, North Carolina today, he talked about his grandmother, who died earlier today in Hawaii.
In this crowd, there are a lot of quiet heroes like them. Mothers and fathers and grandparents who have worked hard and sacrificed all their lives. And the satisfaction that they get is seeing that their children, and maybe their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren, live a better life than they did.
Tomorrow, Obama will vote here in Chicago with his wife, and then he will continue campaigning. He'll be over in Indiana, the next state over, another battleground state. That's the latest from Chicago. I'm Drew Levinson. Now to Manuel Gallegos in Phoenix.
Well, Drew, Senator McCain knows that he is trailing in the polls, but he is predicting an upset victory. And at this hour, he is in the middle of a whirlwind campaign blitz of 7 states. He started in Florida, a battleground state with 27 electoral votes. He then stopped in Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and just a short time ago, New Mexico. Except for New Mexico, all of these are traditionally red states, but not necessarily this time. McCain has been hoarse but energized, saying momentum is on his side.
America faces a big choice, and there's just one day left. The pundits have written us off just like they've done before, and my opponent is measuring the drapes in the White House. They may not know it, but the Mac is back.
Now, McCain's campaign manager admits that it has been a hard-fought race, but that no one thought McCain could get the nomination, and he did. And he also says that no one thought a Republican could win in this environment, yet they still feel like they have a real chance at victory here if they get the right combination of states. Hank, McCain is in Nevada at this hour. He then comes back to Prescott, Arizona for a midnight rally. He'll vote here in Arizona tomorrow, then off to Colorado and New Mexico. He's going to fight right till the end.
All right, Manny Gallegos and Drew Levinson, thank you both very much. You know, today alone, the 4 candidates are visiting these 12 swing states. The campaigns have been bombarding the states, and a new Quinnipiac University poll says Barack Obama is ahead in Ohio and Pennsylvania. In Florida, Obama holds a narrow lead in most polls, but it's still a toss-up. Michael Williams from our sister station WFOR in Miami reports from that state.
John McCain must have Florida if he hopes to win the White House. He knows it's key. John McCain spent a lot of time here the last week or so. He was in Miami overnight, then Tampa. Barack Obama in Jacksonville today, vying for Florida's 27 electoral votes. A few weeks ago, with the economy in crisis and all the economic numbers plummeting, Barack Obama was enjoying a sizable advantage in this key state, but that is now very much not the case. Historically, Florida has gone Republican. In fact, only twice since 1976. In 76 for Jimmy Carter and in 1996 for Bill Clinton did this state turn blue. We've had heavy turnout across the state in early voting, and we'll see what happens in the polls tomorrow as we keep an eye on this key state. Michael Williams reporting for CBS 5 from Miami.
All right, and joining us now for some perspective is CBS 5 political analyst Joe Tuman. Welcome, Joe.
Hank.
All right, can John McCain do anything to prove the pollsters wrong?
Well, I think his campaign thinks they can if they get the right combination of math and electoral college. And of course, that assumes that there are still some undecided voters that they can persuade. But Hank, to be honest with you, the map you showed the viewers just a few minutes ago tells the story. All of those states, except Pennsylvania, are red states. They're not red states right now, but they were red states in 2004. That means they went solidly for George Bush and the Republican Party. This year, the fact that they're even up for grabs means that's how much John McCain is behind, and he needs to win every one of those in order to persuade voters that his candidacy is viable.
It also shows you how much money Obama has. He raised what will probably be $700 million by the time this is over, and I guess he's been able to spend it in those red states.
He's spent it in those states. He's bought a lot of advertising, but more than that, I mean, if Obama wins this, it's not just going to be about money, it's about organization. Florida, where we just were, is a very good example of that. The reason Obama is leading in Florida is because he's had a better organization, he's registered more voters. One of the reasons that Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, for example, are in play is that white evangelical voters who vote traditionally red in those states are matched by large emergent African American populations, and the killer in this, young voters who are committed to vote for the first time in this election. If you get that kind of a trend, it's hard for those red states to stay red.
Real quickly, the latest CBS News poll shows Obama up by 9 points. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and actually I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think it even understates the case. I think his numbers nationally in terms of the total vote will be more than 10% tomorrow, because I think these polls still underestimate those same two populations, African Americans and young people.
All right, Joe Tuman, thank you very much. See you at 10 o'clock tonight. Now, coming up, just how tight is the race over Prop 8? Plus, what happens to the thousands of gay marriages if it passes? Also, what few people know about the plans to bring high-speed rail to California, and what it really takes to get a swing state voter to commit. The Bay Area volunteers finding out in Nevada.
This door's wide open now. It's going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Well, California voters will decide whether they like it or not with their votes on Prop 8, which would ban same-sex marriage. And this fight has had a little bit of everything, a rush of weddings, millions of dollars in ads, and even some vandalism. Now, the latest Eyewitness News poll from Survey USA shows it's still too close to call for Prop 8. We have 47% voting yes, 50% voting no, and 3% undecided. Our Tweevu is at a phone bank right now where people against Prop 8 are calling voters. Good evening, Twee.
Good evening, Hank. And that close race that you just talked about is really what has led to scenes like this. It's been like this all day here at the No on 8 campaign headquarters. Lots of people calling volunteers, making sure they show up outside polling places tomorrow, and the measure's backers are doing the same.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Election Day. We plan to make history on November 4th.
The countdown is on. More than 600 volunteers have shown up here since the weekend to help wage one last fight against Proposition 8. What's going on here?
So here we're bagging up materials for each of our polling locations all across the state. We're here in Northern California. We'll be at over 1,000 polling places at least, perhaps more, on Election Day.
The battle over same-sex marriages has gripped the nation. Checks for both sides have been pouring in from other states, including Ohio, New York, and Utah. Spending on the measure is approaching a whopping $70 million, and polls show opponents holding only a slim lead, 49 to 44%.
We're trying to find that voter who is still undecided on how they're going to vote on Prop 8 and make sure that we can talk to them just before they vote and go into the polls to understand that we do want to say no to discrimination.
We're going to take those lists and the voters that have been identified as supporting the proposition.
The measure's backers are compiling their own army. The group Catholics for the Common Good says the campaign will have 100,000 volunteers statewide statewide outside polling places.
We still have people calling in, is it too late for me to help? And we say, no, it's not. We give them phone lists.
And what message will they be making in those last-minute calls?
Marriage is a very special thing. And between a man and a woman, it's something that has a public interest. People are coming back and overwhelmingly starting to support this.
And tonight, the volunteers keep coming here to the No on 8 campaign headquarters. You see here, this room is packed, easily 100 or more supporters getting their volunteer training at this hour and learning what they need to do outside the polling places tomorrow to approach undecided voters to make their case. Hank, back to you.
All right, Tweevu, thank you very much. Most expensive race in the country right now, $70 million on that on both sides. Joining us now for some perspective, CBS 5 legal analyst, Judge Ladores Cordell. Welcome, Judge. Nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Now, let me ask you this. An estimated 16,000 same-sex couples have married since the Supreme Court allowed it. What happens to those couples if the voters say yes to banning same-sex marriage?
Well, Hank, the general rule is that when laws are enacted that make conduct that was once legal no longer legal, the law is not applied retroactively. That means it applied prospectively. It goes forward from the date it was enacted. So under that general rule, those who are married, the 32,000 people, right. 16,000 couples, they remain legally married. Now, that doesn't mean that that isn't going to be challenged. And I absolutely foresee that if this initiative passes, they're going to be arguing that there ought to be an exception to this rule, to the retroactivity rule, and that those marriages ought to be invalidated. Well, it's going to end up in the courts.
Let me ask you about that, winding up in the courts, because we could say the same thing about Prop 4, which is parental notification of abortion. We have voted on this issue before. It went to the courts. You expect both of these measures will wind up in the courts one way or the other?
Right. Proposition 4, the parental notification has come before the voters twice. This is the third time. And if it passes, there's going to be a battle in the courts. And if it doesn't pass, it means maybe another initiative is going to come through, which seems to be the cycle here.
Well, Judge, who has the final say, the voters or the courts?
Well, that's a good question, Hank, and the answer is nobody. Right now, if the people aren't happy with the decision from the courts, then there's an initiative. And then the initiative can get challenged in the courts because people think it's unconstitutional, not fair. It's this revolving door, and it really brings up the issue of whether or not this whole initiative system is maybe gotten out of hand in California. It's certainly worth a discussion.
Yeah, goes back 100 years, started out with good intentions, but it takes people half an hour, 45 minutes to just look at the ballot, doesn't it?
It's true, and also initiatives are out there because people have a lot of money to fund these initiatives. It takes money to buy people to get signatures, and so it's becoming really a tool for people who are wealthy, and not the original intent was for the average person to try to get people involved in making sure that the laws were fair.
All right, Judge Ladores Cordell, great talking with you as always. Sure. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Now, after months of sky-high gas prices, there has been a big push to find new energy sources and ways to get around. That's political, too. Green Beat reporter Jeffrey Schaub reports on some very little-known facts about a few propositions.
We start with Proposition 1A, the high-speed rail initiative. Prop 1A would allow the sale of over $9 billion in bonds to begin design work and environmental studies for construction of a high-speed rail train between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Advocates say the train would whisk travelers to LA in just under 3 hours. We found backers may have over-enthusiastically projected ridership, and the Rail Authority has yet to negotiate terms to buy or lease the land where the rail tracks would go. Proposition 7 would require the state's big utilities, including PG&E, to dramatically increase the amount of power they purchase from solar, wind, and other renewable sources of clean energy. It won't cost taxpayers money, but it would cost the utilities, which may explain why they are pretty much funding the No on 7 campaign. Proposition 10 on the ballot would do two things. Like Prop 7, it would develop more renewable sources of power generation in the state. It would also provide incentives and rebates for the development of natural gas-powered vehicles. Prop 10 is bankrolled by billionaire T. Boone Pickens, who also is in the natural gas industry.
On the Green Beat, Jeffrey Schaub, CBS 5.
Well, from funding for regional parks in the East Bay to legalizing prostitution in San Francisco to a tax for BART to San Jose, there are a lot of other issues facing Bay Area voters, and you can check out our voter guide on our webpage at cbs5.com.
What are you doing in California? Matter of fact, Nevada is the place to be. This is a swing state. We'll tell you about hundreds of folks from the Bay Area who have come here to try and make a difference.
Also, what to expect at the polls tomorrow. What happens if there's still a line at 8 p.m.? How long will it take to count all those votes? Coming up.
And I am proud to stand firm with the next President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
You know, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
It's a time we change it. Barack Obama will change it.
Governor.
Say it ain't so, Joe. There you'll go again, pointing backwards again.
All right, the choice of a running mate has rarely played such a pivotal role in a presidential campaign. In fact, a CBS News poll finds that Sarah Palin was the top reason that voters gave for switching from McCain to Obama. But now the campaigns aren't focused on changing minds. They want to make sure that supporters vote. Volunteers are at Bay Area call centers right now trying to get out the vote. But some Bay Area volunteers are doing even more. Tonight they are in the swing state of Nevada, and so is our Joe Vasquez. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Hank. Just to tell you just how important this state is, right now today, 3 of the 4 presidential and vice presidential candidates have been through here. We had Obama earlier today, McCain right now, and then Sarah Palin's going to be right here in Reno a little later tonight. Meanwhile, hundreds of volunteers from the Bay Area have been on the ground here trying to drive out the vote.
We're turning Nevada blue.
Walking the neighborhoods of Reno,
Leave the change piece.
are busloads of volunteers from the Bay Area.
We're close by, and it's not that far and not that much to give up. It's the campaign of the century.
Obama already has a solid lead in California, so hundreds of Californians representing both campaigns have crossed the state line into Nevada, where the vote will be close.
I am Joe the plumber.
Republicans have won the last 2 presidential elections here.
Hi, I'm Jefferson with the McCain-Palin team. How are you?
Jefferson Lilly is an investor who lives in San Francisco's Marina District.
30-25 now, should be. Statistics show that once someone like me comes through, shakes their hand, asks them for their support, and they commit to it, they're something like 20 or 25% more likely to actually show up at the polls and vote.
So you can make so much more of an impact coming here instead of being in San Francisco making phone calls.
Yeah.
Why'd they come to Reno? Voter registration shows Las Vegas is largely Democratic, and the rural areas of Nevada have traditionally voted Republican. But Reno is almost evenly divided between the 2 parties, making it a swing city in a crucial swing state.
You want a sticker for the kids?
A freshman from Oakland's Technical High School is one of the many volunteers. Her name is Hope Schwartz, as in the audacity of hope.
I'm making a difference. I'm changing the world. That sounds really cheesy, but it really does feel like that when you get someone who's supportive, and it's just an amazing experience.
What are you doing?
And we want to be balanced, so we showed you both Republicans and Democrats. But to be fair, we saw a whole lot more Obama supporters here last night and today driving out the vote. And Hank, Obama is up by a substantial lead in the polls.
All right, Joe Vasquez in Reno. Thank you, Joe. All day today, early voters around the Bay Area have waited in lines to cast their ballots before Election Day. Between absentee voting, early voting, and voting at the polls tomorrow, turnout could set a record. And we want to talk about that now with Steve Weir, who is the Contra Costa County Registrar of Voters. Nice to see you there, Steve.
Hey, hi, Hank.
Now, with such a big turnout predicted, are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready in California, and fortunately, many more people are voting by mail, so that's going to take a little bit of the pressure off at the polls. We do want the voters, though, to get their sample ballot and mark it before they go to the polls. That'll help out.
Steve, are you going to know, I should say, are we going to know results tomorrow night after the polls close, especially on some of these propositions?
You know, Hank, we're going to have about 13.2 million Californians cast ballots in this election, and we think that a little over 2.5 million of those will not be counted election night. Those are absentee or vote by mail ballots that come in at the polls. There are provisional ballots that can't be touched. There's some early ballots that can't be touched. And so about 20% of the total vote won't be counted election night. So if something's close,
hang on. It's going to take us several weeks to get through those.
Now, what happens if people are still in line 8 p.m. tomorrow night when the polls are supposed to close?
Okay, the polls close exactly at 8 p.m. and you know that because someone's going to say the polls are now closed. When someone announces that at the entrance, there is a person that goes to the end of the line, a poll worker, and they'll stand there and make sure that everybody in line gets to vote. But no one that comes after that is going to get a chance to vote.
What problems might we expect? I know you said that we're in good shape, but it seems like something always comes up. What are you worried about?
Well, we're concerned about having a lot of people show up at the polls after 5 o'clock and having some lines. You know, we can expect that. Although I think we'll have about 1.2 million fewer Californians go to the polls at this presidential election than 4 years ago. So fingers crossed, we're hoping that we're not going to have all these lines that we've heard about across the country.
And fewer going to the polls because they've already voted absentee or last weekend or whatever.
Right. In fact, we had just a little over 4 million Californians vote by absentee ballots 4 years ago. It's over 6 million in this election.
All right, Steve Weir, thank you. Good luck tomorrow night. We're rooting for you. And we'll be right back. All right, so we want to hear from you tomorrow night on our website at cbs5.com. Here's how it works. Along with our special election webcast, you can sound off in a chat with other viewers. You can also get real-time results and find out the latest buzz on the blogs. Tomorrow, we will have complete election night coverage, starting with the CBS Evening News at 3:30. We will have up-to-date results as soon as the polls close in different time zones. We'll also have the latest on what's happening in the Bay Area and the state with local updates throughout the night. So we hope that you'll join us tomorrow for what really will be an historic election. That's our program for now. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.